I want to welcome all first-time attendees and new members. This is our CASH Statewide School Facility Monthly Meeting. My name is Julie Arthur. I'm the CASH Chair, and I also work at Palm Springs Unified School District as Executive Director of Facilities and Planning. So I want to thank you all for joining us. This is our third monthly webinar that we've been doing. The COVID-19, as you know, makes us all do new and different things. So we also have sent a survey to all of our members regarding our fall conference on how we may best deliver it for you. So if you haven't already had a chance to fill out the survey, today is the final day to turn it in. So please take a moment, fill that out. We really want to hear your thoughts on what we see the CASH Fall Conference, which is scheduled for October, would look like in your view. So we appreciate everyone's opinions. Put it in, suggestions, all of that would be great. All right, let's go to the next slide. So for your reference, CASH created a COVID-19 resource page on our website with information from state agencies, our webinar content, our articles, and more. So if you haven't been joining us, we've been doing weekly webinars, usually on Thursday mornings. And then we've done past web shops, and those are usually on a two-part series on Tuesdays and Fridays. So those are all recorded and questions with answers provided on the CASH web page. So if you have a chance, please go there and check it out. All right, our next slide. So let's just talk about those upcoming web events. So tomorrow on June 25th at 10 a.m., we're going to have our CASH webinar on school social distancing logistics. And that will be done with include ideas, plans, work, and worries of school district leaders and architects as they approach the opening of the pre-K-12 campuses. So discussion on the goals of returning students to the campuses while keeping them safe from the COVID-19 infection, which is going to be interesting. We're going to also hear from several parents with children in public schools. Will share their concerns about what they believe the reentry and what their expectations will be for trusting their local school districts. And also, if you'll save the date for Tuesday, July 28th, as the CASH Maintenance Network and School Energy Coalition is going to have their webinar. So details are forthcoming, but again, if you'll go to the CASH website, you can find your registration right there. All right, next up. We've got, as you know, you're getting in your inbox, you get a lot of stuff in your inbox, but when you see the CASH Weekly Update email newsletter, please take a look at it, open it up. It's a summary of the latest news. It has events, workshops, conferences, professional opportunities, and more. So if you have a chance, please look at that. That's also a lot of times where you're really going to see about what we're doing with the webinars and web shops, because those you really have to register on those the day before. You're not able to do it the day of the web shop. So take a look at those and look at those timelines. All right, next up we have Ida Clare with the Division of State Architects. She's going to give us an update on what's happening with DSA. Good morning, Ida.
Good morning, Julie. Now I think it works. Hello, everyone. Give you an update on what we are doing here at DSA. We are experiencing typical workload, which is good news. We have $765 million of projects to review in June. The areas of big workload are Oakland and San Diego, and we have $771 million already scheduled for July, and the big areas of work are Los Angeles and San Diego. So the work is getting spread throughout the state. We are a little lighter here in Northern California, specifically Sacramento, but it seems like the work is picking up, which is good. We obviously know about the COVID crisis has really put a damper on the budget for on the state budget. And through collective bargaining, we have come to an agreement with the two unions that affect state employees, and both require 2 personal leave days as part of unpaid, obviously, as part of dealing with the budget. So because we're looking at an additional 2 days a month that staff is able to take off, we are hoping that this is not going to impact us too greatly in terms of keeping on schedule. They don't have to take them in the month, they can bank them. And so we will be working with our staff to ensure that the workload keeps moving along and try to encourage them to take their personal leave days when scheduling them around vacations, and so managing that. Obviously, this may result in a little bit of bin time just because we will have every staff person being able to take these days in order to assist with the state budget. So bear with us, but we will try to have all resources in place to ensure that the work keeps moving along as quickly as possible. We did update our Bulletin 20.01, which is COVID-related DSA assistance during the COVID pandemic. We did address tents or membrane structures on the most recent issue, which was earlier this week. So I do encourage you to look on the DSA website for Bulletin 20.1 because we have amended it with regard to tent structures, which is the question that we've been getting a lot on lately. We are still looking to provide a COVID assistance webpage on our website. That is in the works and should be up and running soon. We do have some links on how to address specifically your indoor air quality while you're in school or while school is in session. It may be that your maintenance facilities need to really ramp up on the air changes to flush the air out so that you can maintain healthier environments and limit the spread if at all possible. We did launch our cohort last week, our school sustainability cohort. We have 57 school districts participating. The largest is LA Unified, but we've also had districts as small as 1,000 students participating, spreading over 29 counties, and it's throughout the state. So we are very, very, very excited about this. A little bit about what they'll be covering during the year. How to engage stakeholders, how to set goals, how to set benchmarking data, how to address policies, contracts, and guidance documents, and selecting a project team, and also pursuing integrated design. Implementing zero when, as you know, that's the goal of this roadmap or this cohort, is to get to zero. So implementing zero practices into the school sustainability plan, and then of course tracking engaging occupants and reporting progress. So we do anticipate having one session a month. It will take the whole year, but these are some of the topics we will be discussing. The sustainability champions that participate in the cohort are required to work with all their stakeholders in order to ensure that the sustainability plan is supported by all those in the district who are affected. And so we encourage you, if your district is participating, to really work with your sustainability champion. They will have homework monthly to bring back to the cohort so that they can keep on track and have measurable documentation in place at the end of the year so that you can get to zero net energy for your facilities. And then finally, we did just have an earthquake, and it is in the SAC regional office, Lone Pine. And so just to let your facilities know, DSA is here to assist with that. We've already alerted our district structural engineers in that area to be available if they need to have calls for inspection and such if there's any damage. So please reach out to us at the Sacramento regional office or here at headquarters, and we'll ensure that we get somebody out there to check things out for you. Other than that, if there are any questions, I can take them now.
I am not seeing any questions right now, but yeah, I understand we were on a board meeting just a little bit ago, and Orange County felt the earthquake. Some of the people out there did, but in Palm Springs, I did not.
Yeah.
So, but that must be pretty good size to reach all the way up from Sacramento to
Yes.
LA.
Yes, exactly. Of course, this is not something we want during a pandemic. So hopefully that would be the only one, and hopefully there isn't any damage or too much damage. So
Yeah, we're fortunate. I'm sure the majority of everyone is in a DSA approved building, so
Yes, we
we're
can hope.
safer than most. I know there was an earthquake outside of Mexico City. Was that Sunday or Monday? And that was like a 7.2. So that was pretty,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty crazy. I don't think they have DSA outside there. So
Yeah, no, no. And most states don't either. So obviously we take our work seriously. So we like to get right on it and see, what the results is when these incidents happen so that we can assist and if we need to learn and move forward, with implementing better codes whenever we can. But hopefully there isn't too much damage and what we've been doing works. So
yeah, absolutely. I am in a DSA approved building on the second floor. So that tells you why I didn't feel anything,
yeah,
right?
there you go. And I'm not. So there you go.
Well, great. All right. Well,
All right.
thank you. I don't see any questions in the chat box, so we'll go ahead and move on.
Great. Thank you, Julie. Have a good
Thank you.
meeting. Thanks.
All right. You have a good week.
Uh-huh.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Next up, we have California Department of Education. I am not sure that we have a representative with us. Uh, I'm not seeing that. So let's go ahead and move on. And we'll go to the Office of Public School Construction. And we have Lisa Silverman with us to give us an update. Good morning, Lisa.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
How's everyone? I don't see everyone, so
I know.
yeah, thank you for having me. And just the onset of yes, the earthquake. Yeah, I'm myself and Michael Watanabe. He's on the other corner of the building, which is great, but he wasn't sure if it was just me. But yeah, it's great to know that this building that I'm in is engineered quite right. So it's good. It's supposed this way. But yeah, and if there's anyone who actually had damage, and like I just say, we're obviously here to help and we'll be monitoring if there are damages, local damages in any of the regions impacted by the earthquake. So please reach out to us if there are some implications there. So yeah, we actually have been humming along, which is great for our program, and nothing stopped. And we just wanted to highlight, although we have a modified, very short, truncated meeting today, and just to alert you folks, probably about 10, 15 minutes. So you don't have to, get your popcorn ready, because by the time the microwave stops, maybe the meeting will be over. So that's good news because things are getting done. But we, as far as a highlight for the EO statement, we wanted to share with the board that with the nearly $812 million in apportionments that went out in May, we have been active. Just to let you know, as of June 19th, we had over $478 million in fund release requests have been submitted, which is awesome. And I know as of the first week of June, we released 148 million. But again, so we're quite rapidly hitting the targets. So we'll be monitoring that and sharing some updates to the board at our next meeting. But August 25th is the deadline to submit your 5005. So again, they'll be our office staff will be communicating with you. If you haven't submitted your 5005, we just want to make sure that no one misses that timeline. And there's a current priority funding request round that's open. And that opened up in May, and we actually had an extension of that deadline. So as opposed to being the middle of June, it's been extended to August 28th. So if you have an unfunded approval up into the August board date, you actually have the ability to submit a certification for the fall bond. And we have been coordinating with the Department of Finance. So we had actually projected the projects that we're going to be moving forward in August. So they will all have an opportunity to submit a certification. And those certs will be valid from July 1st all the way to December 31st of 2020. So let's not miss out on that opportunity for that fall bond sale. And then the Career Tech filing round is open, and it actually closes next week on June 30th. And we're actually on target for bringing those projects. I know we're going to have an abundance of applications, and great that they have been submitted electronically, which is awesome. But I know our target date is taking it to the September board. So more to come in that area. And the time extension request, we really appreciate, the collaborative effort between districts and needing the extensions, and we are happy that we've been facilitating that request. So we received 161 extensions so far, and that's great news. And that represents 36 small school districts, 45 medium school districts, and 80 large school districts. So out of the 161 extension requests, we've actually approved 158. So it's not only related to processing, but there may be some timelines associated with accounting or submitting some other documentation related to closeout and other significant timelines. So we've been really, again, working with districts and to facilitate any extension needs that they have. There have been a few that we had, they fell outside the box in an extension, so more to come related to those projects, and we just wanted to share with you that 2 of those items more or less deals with perhaps an item that needs to go to the board, because administratively we don't have the ability to grant those types of extensions. So it's not really an extension of time, it's really really dealing with a project-specific issue. So again, we'll be addressing that separately to the board. We want to provide regulation updates. As of June 26th, we just wanted to share that the career tech education, as it related to the moving the town locale from suburban to rural, that is in effect, as of June 11th. So again, that's great news. So that will be reflected as far as the applications that we process. And the full day kinder, the 45-day notice started on June 26th. So again, a lot of activity in our regulation area. We also sent out an email alert, and I believe that was last week, just emphasizing electronic submittals. So our goal is to ensure that there's nothing lost in the mail, and let's save some paper, let's save some time and effort. And we've been accepting a lot of documentation for processing and timelines associated with other programs via email. So there's a quick link, and we actually have a central repository for the electronic submissions. So that way it's just one team member logging in and then facilitating to the various sections or divisions that will have the various documents that need to be redirected to. So again, just want to ensure that we're all taking advantage of electronic submittals right now. And OPSC Online, if you haven't been updated on that, we go live next week. So this is exciting news for our program, because I know we've had a paper environment for a number of years, and we've been excited on this 2-year or 3-year wave of product development. And again, knowing that a lot of our documentation related to our program is going to be all online. So again, our goal is to streamline our processes and submit it electronically, and electronic signatures associated with that. So take advantage of that. And if you have any questions, again, please direct them to our office. We'd be happy to get feedback on how this new online process goes in our new environment. So perfect timing for us as we go down this path. And we also wanted to highlight the workload. The workload list, just to give you a perspective, as of May 31st, we have on the workload 299 projects that represent 1.18 billion in new construction. So these are within the bond authority. And then modernization projects, we have 857 projects. That's also on our workload, and that represents $1.9 billion. So again, that's all within the bond authority. And then as far as the acknowledged list, we wanted to highlight that's 1.67 billion that's on the acknowledged list. And that's as of May 31st. So we have 148 new construction projects, $687 million that represents that new construction area. And modernization, we nearly have 400 projects. We have 396 projects that represent $986 million. So we have still been accepting projects on the acknowledged list. So I just want to give you the update there. If you have any questions, as far as our meetings are concerned, we actually still have core office hours And we actually have a rotation of staff. So myself and Michael Watanabe are here today, but yesterday we had Barbara was in the office. So we have a full rotation, which is nice. And Lisa Jones, she loves being in the office. So she's typically here on Monday and Fridays. And we have support staff here as well. So again, hopefully we're meeting your business needs and everything's moving along as planned. So if you have any questions, let me know.
Hey, Lisa, there was a question that came into the chat box. It says, if OPSC has already processed 148 million, does that mean they will exceed their 150 million annual target this year?
Oh, so the 148 million, what I was referring to is actually the fund releases from the recent bond sale. So that correlates to that update. But our goal was still to meet the 1.5 billion, and we did hit that goal. So the projects that we processed in December actually got us to our target for this current budget year. So we hit that target, 1.5 billion. And next year, again, as we start moving along, our target will be fulfilled by next December. So because we're about 6 months ahead of ourselves. And then so that correlates to the projects that will be eligible for the spring bond sale. So things are moving along, and yeah, we're going to hit our target of 1.5 billion. That hasn't changed.
Well, I was really happy to see that in the governor's budget that we had the 1.5 billion.
Yeah.
I mean, that was, thank goodness, and that'll keep a lot of people moving along, I think.
Yeah, and I think there's no concern. Bond sales have been great, believe it or not. I know we had that little break, and the initial bond sale was in March, and that got my attention. And then COVID hit, and then they said, don't worry, the market looks great for us, and they hit it in April. So it's really good to see that the market hasn't softened at all related to the bond sales. So again, our goal is to continue processing and hit our timelines.
That's great. Hopefully a little bit of a lower interest rate as well on those, right?
Yeah. It's a bargain rate right now, right?
I know, everyone's refinancing, right?
Mm-hmm. So there's a question, is there any discussion on when the SAB will start meeting in person? Well, that's a good thing. Good question. Well, I think right now, the current environment, I don't know if any of you folks know that there have been restrictions once the Capitol did open up, and it was really primarily for the ledge members and ledge staffers, and they wanted to keep the committee rooms available for those various legislative committees. And even in our current environment, we're still planning on Zoom unless our environment gets better by August, because that's when our next meeting is. We'll see if there is an opportunity to have that meeting, but let's just hope that we keep everyone safe and healthy and make sure that those numbers don't rise, and we just, again, tread softly on moving with Zoom for now. But again, it's worked well. But yeah, we will have to see how August plays out. I'm sure, again, with the committee meeting rooms, and there's going to be the last final hurrah for a lot of our ledge members at the end of August. So I'm sure they'll be quite busy in those committee rooms. But we'll see where it goes. I know for now it's Zoom, but we'll see if it actually have a in-person meeting.
Yeah, 60 days, right?
I know. It's gone by fast. July next week. I can't believe it.
I know. We're opening school August 5th here in Palm Springs, and that's what, 5-6 weeks away. So
yeah, I'm excited for school to open for my son. He's 17. He'll be a senior, so we're excited about that. But yeah, it's just a whole new world. He wants to go to school, believe it or not. So.
Yeah. Have they made a determination in his school district of what it's going to look like?
Actually, it's interesting you bring that question up, because what they did was a survey. They surveyed parents and said, how comfortable do you feel about sending your kids to school? And so they haven't actually, we just got an alert yesterday from the school district, and they were sharing that they're still tallying, and there's some folks that haven't responded to the online, so they were encouraging parents to respond so we can figure out what our plan's going to look like. And then the county I live in is El Dorado County, so we didn't have quite the impacts as larger counties. So they were also going to submit a plan and ensure that it all falls in line with the local requirements, health requirements in the area. So more to come, but it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
We are still in flux here. So
Yeah.
we've done a survey as well, and it again, it was a third, you know, parents distance learning, come back 5 days a week, in a hybrid. So
Right. No, and my son, I think, I mean, he did great this semester and prior semesters, but, you know, I told him, I said, it's almost like college. You know, you dictate your own schedule, but you get the work done. So, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all folds out because, you know, like many of my colleagues here, I mean, they all have young children and they're at home and trying to do that and, you know, that balance and flexibility. Yeah, I don't have to say too much of my son getting his stuff done, but yeah, it's just interesting. Some of the you know, regional challenges, and then, you know, you're having your whole family dynamics change. But yeah, we're actually working at home. You've obviously seen that, but I would say 98% of our workforce is at home. So yeah, it's been effective, and you know, we actually have a lot of workload reports and data as far as you know, how efficient we're in our telework environment. So we've been collecting data for a number of years, so it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. So I'll get my reports in the next few weeks and see. This is working.
Hopefully you'll share that with us and see how
it's exciting. It's exciting. So it's not only our fiscal services staff, but accounting will have these workload metrics, and also program staff will, as far as processing the application. So yeah, it's good. I'm glad we have these reports because it means how effective we are in our current environment. And I'm actually pleased that we have all these tools in place, so that way our process is it's going to be a seamless process. So it's been great. So I appreciate everyone's support in this environment, and I know again, our goal is to get as much done as physically can. But you know, if you have any challenges, please let us know, and we would be happy to address what those issues are.
Great, Lisa. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, take care.
All right, you too.
See you soon.
Okay. Next up, we have our CASH Legislative, Regulatory, and Maintenance Network updates with Nancy Chairs Espinosa, Rebecca Curley, and Ian Padilla. We'll be providing that today. So Nancy, Rebecca, Ian, who's up first?
I think it's me.
Okay, great. Welcome.
Hi, folks. Good. Let's see. Are we still afternoon? It's still good morning. It's good to be with you. Let me switch screens here a second. So I have the pleasure this morning of giving you a little bit of overview on the state budget minus the federal details, which my colleague Rebecca is going to cover next. First off, the primary budget bills are in print, and we're basing this off of the bills and the floor report. We anticipate that the votes will take place on Friday, June 26th, because the Assembly recessed last Friday and they need to come back to vote on those. The Senate is still in session. Some highlights. You may recall either in our updates or written communications, we talked about how the deal that the legislative leaders had struck had a different approach fundamentally than the governor. And the primary difference was that the governor wanted to take the cuts now and restore money if we got additional federal aid to the tune of about $14 billion, whereas the legislature wanted to assume we were going to get the aid and make cuts later. So ultimately what they decided on is the governor's approach of taking the cuts now and hopefully triggering them off if and when the federal government provides that additional $14 billion in aid. The trigger date was also modified. It was pushed back slightly to October 15th. And it includes K-12 deferrals in lieu of cuts. And so specifically, it defers $1.87 billion in Prop 98 funding from the 2019-20 year to 2020-21. It also defers $3.4 billion from 2020-21 to 21-22. And should federal funds fail to appear, an additional $5.7 billion in additional deferrals will take place for 2020-21. The agreement rejects the 10% reduction to the local control funding formula that the governor had proposed in the May revision, but it also denies a 2.1% cost of living adjustment. If the federal aid comes in somewhere north of $2 billion, but still less than $14 billion, they will make proportional cuts across a list of areas which is specified in the bills, which includes K-12 and community colleges. One big sticking point between labor and management had been the prohibition of layoffs, which is included. So the agreement prohibits in fiscal year 2020-21 a governing board from terminating permanent or probationary classified employees that hold classifications or are assigned to positions in nutrition, transportation, and custodial services. And there are also prohibitions from laying off certificated employees. Let's see, there is a hold harmless provision for average daily attendance for the 2020-21 school year, and that was a major sticking point between the administration and the legislature. There is a definition of distance learning that is created, and some facility specific issues. It allows the proceeds, specifically just the net gain portion from the sale of surplus property, to be used for general fund purposes. We talked about that before. It does eliminate the need for the State Board of Education approval of joint occupancy agreements. And once again, there is nothing regarding Prop 51 bond sales or the allocation schedule, which we basically take to mean no news is good news, that the administration remains committed to the 1.5 billion per year target. And with that, I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Rebecca.
Thanks, Nancy. Just to wrap up a little bit on the budget, a couple of things that we've talked about in the world of facilities. The first is our full day kindergarten facilities grant program. We do see the sweep of the $300 million in remaining funds that were authorized in prior budget years happening in this agreement between the legislature and the governor. And those funds, because they were general fund, are going to be used just for other budget resiliency purposes. The program remains in statute, however, so if there are funds available in the future, it could come back. The language says that the program is contingent upon appropriation of funds by the legislature. The other one that I wanted to update you on is the school reopening block grant that had been proposed by the legislature. We talked about this at our last meeting, and it was a legislative proposal on how to use some of the discretionary federal funds. So we've got about $5.3 billion in discretionary funds that the legislature and governor were looking at for COVID response for schools. And ultimately, they decided not to include the school reopening block grant in the final negotiated agreement. So it would have been $100 million for various reopening costs that could have included cleaning and sanitation, amongst other things. Instead, the legislature agreed to the governor's approach, which is to use some of the money for community schools and supporting and expanding our existing community schools to support high need students, and also to use some of the funds for school meal reimbursements. Additional federal dollars are going to be used for learning loss mitigation. So that's about the $5.3 billion. This can be used for things like summer programs, extending the instructional year, additional academic services, which can include materials or devices for your students who might be doing distance learning, and also for counseling and mental health services. So that's where they landed on the use of the federal dollars for K-12. And then shifting gears a little bit, there's been an ongoing conversation at the state and now at our local levels about distributing personal protective equipment to LEAs. And I know this is something that some of the folks on our panel have been dealing with, and some of you all have probably been dealing with. But I wanted to give you an update on where this effort is at, because it's a coordination between Cal OES and our local county offices and school districts. So what the state is doing is they are providing PPE for the first 60 days of the school year to county offices, and county offices are distributing that PPE to the school districts within their county. And after the 60-day supply has been used up, it will be on the schools themselves to do the purchasing. There has been some conversation at the state level about doing a state level procurement option. So some kind of a purchasing hub where you can access those materials, because we know some of you have had challenges sourcing some of these things. The PPE allocation includes a number of things. There are masks for children as well as for adults. These include both surgical masks and cloth masks. So the current allocation formula is to provide 2 surgical and 2 cloth per child. There are face shields that will be provided for teachers, and they are allocating 4 disposable shields per teacher. There are N95 masks and surgical masks that are going to be used by our school-based health professionals. And these are intended for those who are providing direct care to sick children who may come to school and need to be cared for before they can go home. There are also no-touch thermometers for every school and child care facility, and 12 gallons of hand sanitizer for each school arriving in gallon jugs. So you have the challenge of figuring out how to split out those gallon-sized jugs into more reasonable sizes for use on your school sites. One issue that we've been working on with the state is the allocation of the N95 masks that are meant for the health care professionals. It seems to be based on the number of credentialed school nurses. So some places we know we don't have enough nurses, certainly not one for every school site, but we do have a staff person on every school site who's been identified to provide that direct care to children. So we're trying to work and see if we can get that adjusted. I don't know if we'll be able to do that, but it's something we've raised with both Cal OES and the Department of Education. And we know it's something that is affecting some of you in your counties. Right now, it sounds like we're in the process of having these allocations delivered to county offices. So if you're a county office that's still waiting to receive your allocation, it's my understanding that Cal OES will call a few days in advance to coordinate delivery. And hopefully you've got some warehouse space for some of those larger deliveries because it's not a small amount of PPE. So with that, any questions on budget or PPE? And if not, we will hand it over to Ian. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Rebecca and Nancy. So yeah, I'm going to give you a little update from a maintenance network perspective on funding, on a new resource that we've developed, and also a policy issue that we're starting to do some advocacy on again. The first place, and it's kind of talking about the budget, the routine restricted maintenance account, the contribution. As you might have imagined, as has been done in the past, sometimes this is suspended in extraordinary economic times like this. And as we anticipated before the May revision, there was some discussion and some support for proposals that would have suspended it again. Of course, cash did not support that for all the reasons that you've heard me and others talk about in terms of supporting capital in these critical times. Thankfully, state leaders had the wisdom to see that this is probably not the best time to make that suspension, and so it was not made. So it's not that there's any new funding for maintenance in the budget, but the routine restricted was not cut this year, which is good news. They did carry over a provision, a technical provision related to STRS contributions, pass-throughs, that is not new, and again was carried over from being approved in the prior budget. In terms of resources, you've heard my colleagues talk about at the state level some of the things that's being discussed, PPE, different pots of funding to essentially to reopen. One of the things that what the cash maintenance has focused on, the maintenance network has focused on, is developing a resource, a guidebook for this. And we, of course, we released that and it's available on the CASH website. It was released last Thursday, I believe. It's about 35 pages. It focuses on 5 major areas. One is student and staff safety, PPE, other behavior modification type of things, of course, cleaning and disinfecting, healthy indoor air quality, scheduling and distancing. And of course, you see CASH has a webinar scheduled on that issue tomorrow. And then fiscal impact. So those 5 pieces. I would point to, you heard the state architect, Ida Claire, mention that there's some focus on indoor air quality and flushing the systems and so on, and other things. This resource in particular, I would say, covers that issue particularly well. And so highly encourage you to take a look at that, both from the changing filters, acceptance testing, the flushing out, but also larger, more major maintenance aspects of that, looking at your whole systems, testing them and maintaining them to ensure that you have good indoor air quality. Because as we know, cleaning and disinfecting is a very important piece of reopening, as is the indoor air quality piece and others. So again, encourage you to take a look at that. It's very much like, I think a lot of our folks are familiar with the CASH Fit guidebook, another guide intended really to be a practical manual. And so it's very much, it looks very much the same, and it has the same kind of intent. So, and finally, stormwater. Of course, you've heard me talk about that a lot, but it is the policy making piece is happening now. Last week, the state board had its first 2 workshops. Of course, they're on the Zoom format for obvious reasons, like we are. But that has resulted in a lot of questions about schools. I would say I participated in both. I would say 80 to 90% of the questions were about schools. So the CASH Maintenance Network, as well as the CASH Environmental Committee, are putting our heads together, and we've created a small group to be able to respond to some of the proposals that we're hearing. Long story short, we are looking at, how would I say this? We think it's going to be difficult to enact new stormwater regulations when we can barely open schools, to just put it very frankly. So we are going to communicate that message to them, but also not be defensive, to also develop internally how we as a school community can continue to make progress in monitoring stormwater quality. Unlike 10 years ago, there's a whole regulatory framework now, and we think that's something that we might look deeper into as an approach. So a lot going on in the stormwater area right now. If you're interested, you can certainly contact me, and I'll let you know as we make progress and as there's things to report that are of significance to maintenance and operations, as well as facility departments. So thank you.
Hey, Ian, I just want to say real quick, that guidebook that you guys did is awesome. Great job on that. Really well done. The format, how it's laid out, the information in it, we're using it here at our district.
Thank you, Julie. I really appreciate that. Yeah, we really, you know, without going too far into, we really put our backs into it, not just the CASH staff, but of course, all those folks that are there. You know, we did some kind of maestro work, but the actual substance was developed by these experts as they were doing their job. So yeah, we hope that'll be a widely used. We're going to continue to try to get it out to folks, our strategic partners, state agencies, others, and also train around that, right? We have experts and we have a manual, and we're talking with Joe Dixon, Tom, and others about doing some of those, maybe some more deeper training. So thank you, and I really appreciate the feedback. It means a lot. Yeah.
Oh, hey, and that's on the CASH website that they can download, right?
That's right.
Okay,
Yep.
excellent. All right,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Nancy, we're going to call you back up to talk about School Energy Coalition.
Happy to be back for a quick update. So the School Energy Coalition has been focusing on a few different things, 2 state issues and 1 federal issue. First, we are opposing the rate increase requested by Southern California Edison, and this is a request that has to be approved by the California Public Utilities Commission. The classification that includes middle school would result in an average 11% increase. I'm getting a little bit of feedback if folks could mute themselves. So that rate increase would result in an average 11% increase for schools. There are some public forums coming up on June 30th and July 1st, with which we will participate in, and we are working on a possible coalition letter with other education management organizations. Issue number 2 is supporting a request from the California Energy Storage Alliance to transfer $150 million from the general large-scale solar budget to the non-residential and residential storage equity budget within the self-generation incentive program. The issue here is that the smaller pot, which is the non-residential storage equity budget, that schools can apply to is oversubscribed, whereas the broader pot is not. So we're just asking really for an internal transfer. SEC has already issued a letter, and we are working on a possible coalition letter there as well. The third issue is that we are opposing a request by the New England Ratepayers Association, which is typically one of these groups that purports to represent ratepayers, but really it's utility companies. So we're opposing a request by them to have the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission prohibit net metering. For those of you who don't know, net metering is a system in which solar panels and other renewable energy generators are connected to a public utility power grid, and the surplus power is transferred onto the grid, allowing the customers to offset the cost of the power drawn from the utility. So this arrangement has been a powerful tool for schools to reduce their energy costs and improve their reliability and resilience. And the prohibition of net metering would cause existing and future school energy projects to no longer pencil out financially. We issued a letter on that last week. And that is the entirety of my School Energy Coalition update, but I'm going to deviate from the agenda 1 second just because concurrent with our meeting, the governor moved up his normal Newsom at noon to 11 o'clock. So I think most of us missed that, and I wanted to give you the highlights from that. It relates a little bit to the question asked of OPSC about when SAB might resume its in-person meetings. The governor just announced that the state saw a 29% increase in COVID-19 related hospitalizations in the last 2 weeks. And the statewide positivity rate is 5.6% in the last 7 days, which is a pretty precipitous increase, and 7,000 new cases just yesterday. So wanted to share that with you, since thank you for being with us, and didn't want you to miss what else was going on today.
Hey, Nancy, next week is the SCE hearings, correct, on that rate hike? I mean, in looking at it, I think schools fell under what, the 8.9% increase on what SCE is proposing for a rate hike?
Well, it would either be the 8.9 or the 11. I think I didn't have the classification written in front of me, but smaller commercial or non-residential, yeah.
Well, residential itself was 14%.
Right.
I've got it on my calendar. I think it's next Wednesday and Tuesday and Wednesday. Mm-hmm. I think the notice is to call in, and they're going to have the hearings. I just think I can't imagine a worse time for a rate hike on your power you're buying, with potential budget cuts and everything that's going on with the revenues. I just can't imagine what and why now they were thinking of doing that, let alone getting rid of, I know it's a separate on that, the net metering, which is, like you said, it's a private group that.
Yeah, there really isn't. This year it seems like we're wearing thin terms like unprecedented with all of the concurrent crises that are going on. But, I'm sure that those folks at the CPUC really don't understand what schools are dealing with right now, much less that we're heading into public safety power shutoff season while we are supposed to be working from home and operating distance learning. So we encourage all of you to join us in weighing in on that.
Yeah. Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's on my calendar. I'm calling in and watching it next week to voice my opposition to these rate hikes. They're killer for us here in the desert. We have SCE, and they're going to damage our budget greatly. So, all right, next slide we have Californians for School Facilities with Dave Walrath. Are we still, we're still morning, Dave. How are you doing?
I am doing well. I trust I am unmuted.
Yes.
Great. Just want to touch on a couple of different points. CSF has been very involved with our lobbyist, Bob Canavan, back in Washington, D.C., on ensuring that schools were included in the House of Representatives infrastructure bill. The House passed the $3 trillion HEROES Act as the follow-up to the CARES Act. They have now come back and will be passing what is H.R. 2, which is their $1.5 trillion infrastructure proposal. Within that proposal, there is $100 billion, $20 billion a year for 5 years for school grants, infrastructure grants. For tax credit bonds, such as the Qualified Zone Academy bonds, qualified school, QSCPS, can't remember the last words on it. Those types of tax credit bonds, they have $40 billion. So this is a major school infrastructure proposal coming from the House. The Senate has not acted yet. The Senate has been, in the past, a challenging place for us to receive school infrastructure funding. However, today, Chair Alexander of the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee came out and said that he believed that schools and colleges needed billions of dollars to reopen. So the Senate may be becoming a little more open to the concerns of schools for both the cost of opening and maybe as for infrastructure costs as well. Lastly, the House bill includes $70 billion for energy. They did not include detail, so we do not know what portion of that might be available for schools. But it is, once again, a major policy proposal. We are hoping that it will include provisions where schools can apply for energy funds. With that, that is a quick update on where we are. We believe that this has been a very, very successful year that just needs to be capped off with a school infrastructure bill being signed by the president.
Well, that would be awesome, Dave, if that happened. We've been waiting how long now?
It's been 3 years since we had federal school infrastructure funding through tax credit bonds.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you so much for the update. I appreciate it. And we'll keep our fingers crossed on that. All right. We have an update coming up next from Jeff Becker on the 42nd Annual Conference of School Facilities. Jeff, I guess it's still morning.
Yeah, one last good morning to everyone. And we are looking forward to joining our friend Julie down in Palm Springs for the 42nd conference on March 1st through 3rd. There has been a lot of work put in by our membership already. We received nearly 180 submissions for education sessions for the annual conference. So thank you everybody that submitted those. Our Strand subcommittees are now beginning the process to review those proposals and work through the selection process for the 2021 conference. They'll be doing that throughout the month of July. And then in August on Cash Day, we'll have our next full annual conference planning committee meeting, either in person or in Zoom as appropriate. And so we are cautiously optimistic and excited about seeing our Cash family together on March 1st through 3rd in Palm Springs. So thank you again to everybody that has submitted proposals, and we'll be working through those now. So Julie, I'll turn it back to you with that.
Jeff, thank you. Wow. Of any of those 180, do any of them have to do with COVID-19?
I think a few of them might have something to do with COVID-19, yes.
It's going to be, again, it's just an amazing year of things and challenges that we are rising to shake up our world a little differently, I think.
Definitely. There should be some fresh conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And just conversation where you're actually looking directly at a person. So, all right, Jeff, thank you. Let's go ahead and we'll move on to our job exchange and pupil's choice. If you have an upcoming RFQ or RFP or a job opening at your district, county office of education, or at your firm, please utilize the CASH Professional Opportunities Job Board to reach a wider and more diverse audience. Believe it or not, I know we all like to advertise in our local area, but there are always people throughout the state of California who are looking to move from either Southern California to Northern California or vice versa. So make sure you use the CASH website. You just cast a nice big range out there of people that you never thought of might be interested to come and join your firm or district. So CASH members can log on to the CASH website and post their job or RFQ there. So please take a look at that. And then next up, mark your calendars. The next CASH Day will be held on Wednesday, July 22nd. And don't forget about CASH's webinar for tomorrow on school social distancing logistics. The webinar is free and it starts at 10 a.m. So RSVP to the CASH email today and Sam will send you your Zoom link. Again, you need to do it today. A lot of times we've already locked those up for tomorrow. So today will be for tomorrow's webinar. See what districts are doing with logistics, how different entities around the state are looking at reopening. Yeah, as we mentioned earlier with Lisa, some of us are reopening in less than 6 weeks. So it's definitely one of those challenging times to think things differently. Now, tomorrow's webinar will be the last webinar that is open to everyone. So starting July 9th, we'll be dark on the 2nd, and then we'll come back July 9th. And those webinars are actually going to be for CASH members only. So if you're listening right now, you're not a CASH member, take this opportunity to go to the CASH website and click on the link to join. That way you'll get all the most current information that's happening. And most of all, CASH wants to be a resource for all of you. And also remember, you are not alone with these challenges that everyone is facing right now. And CASH is here to keep you informed through emails and our webinars on our COVID-19 World Evolves. And so with that, I'm going to end and say take care, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.